My name is Wendy Thomas. I'm 29 years old. I'm a registered nurse. And 3 months ago, my own father signed a paper that was supposed to let me die. Not because the doctors said I couldn't be saved. Not because my injuries were beyond repair. No. He signed it because someone told him how much it would cost. Just a number. That's all it took. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine waking up from a coma. Your body broken, tubes everywhere. Your chest barely rising. And the first thing you learn isn't that someone tried to save you. It's that someone tried to quit on you. Someone who raised you. Someone who called himself your father. That's where my story really begins. But the truth is, this didn't start in the hospital. It started years earlier. I was born with a hole in my heart, a ventricular septal defect. I was 4 years old when surgeons cracked my chest open and spent 11 hours repairing it. My parents spent the next 20 years talking about the bill. $214,000. That number lived in my house like another family member. You know how much you cost this family, Wendy? My father said that the first time when I was 8 years old. I had asked for new sneakers because mine had split open and rain kept soaking my socks. He didn't look at me when he said it. He just kept staring at the medical bills on the kitchen table. $214,000. That's what you cost. After that day, I stopped asking for things. By 12, I was babysitting the neighbors' kids to buy my own school supplies. By 15, I had 3 part-time jobs. By 18, I signed my own student loans, while my older sister Meredith packed for the university my parents were paying for in full. She got a car when she turned 16. I got a bus pass. She got birthday dinners at restaurants. I got cake from a grocery store box and a card signed only by my mom. And the weirdest part? I didn't hate them. I honestly believed I owed them. When someone tells you your entire childhood that you're a financial burden, eventually you start believing it. Except one person never treated me like a debt. My grandmother, Lillian. Lillian Price lived in a small brick house in Norristown, Pennsylvania. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a porch swing that creaked when the wind blew. Every Saturday, I drove 40 minutes to see her. We'd sit on that swing drinking tea while she told stories about the neighborhood, the garden, or the birds that kept stealing tomatoes. She never once mentioned money. She'd just look at me and say, "Did you eat today, sweetheart?" Toward the end of her life, she grabbed my hand one afternoon. Her voice was shaky, but her eyes were sharp. "I've taken care of some things for you, Wendy," she said. "When the time comes, a man named Kessler will find you." I thought she was confused. She was 84. People say strange things when they're old. 3 months later, she passed away in her sleep. My father rushed through the funeral like he had a flight to catch. No long speeches, no big service. Just a quick goodbye and back to normal life. I didn't know it yet, but my grandmother had already changed my future. And my father was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. 3 months after her funeral, I was driving home from a night shift at the hospital. 4:17 in the morning. Rain tapping against the windshield. I remember glancing at the dashboard clock and calculating how much sleep I'd get before my next shift. Then a pickup truck ran a red light doing 50. It hit my driver's side so hard my car folded like aluminum foil. Everything went black. When I arrived at the hospital, it wasn't just any hospital. It was the one where I worked. The same hallways where I'd spent years caring for patients were now filled with doctors trying to keep me alive.
Brain swelling, broken ribs, internal bleeding. They stabilized me, but I needed a second surgery, a complicated one, expensive. And because I wasn't married and had no kids, the hospital called my emergency contact, my father, Gerald Thomas. He arrived that night, but he didn't go to my room first. He went to the billing department. He asked one question: "How much is this going to cost?" The surgeon told him the estimate, somewhere between $180,000 and $240,000. Insurance would help, but not enough. My father listened. Then he said something that would later appear word for word in a hospital report. "Let her go. We won't pay for the surgery." He signed a Do Not Resuscitate order. His hand didn't shake. He didn't ask to see me. He didn't say goodbye. He went home and went to bed. As far as he knew, by morning his daughter would be dead. But one person refused to let that happen. Patricia Walsh. Pat was the head nurse at our hospital, 28 years on the floor, tough as nails. She heard everything my father said that night, and something about it didn't sit right with her. So she opened my employee file. Inside that file, there was a healthcare proxy, a document giving medical decision power to someone else, my best friend, Deborah Owens. Pat called Deborah at 11:14 p.m. Deborah didn't ask questions. She just said 2 words, "I'm coming." She drove 90 minutes through rain. She walked into the hospital after midnight with the paperwork in her hand. She revoked the DNR. She authorized the surgery. The doctors rushed me into the operating room. And 3 weeks later, I woke up. The first face I saw was Pat. She sat beside my bed and held my hand. "You're safe," she said. Then she told me the truth. Every word my father had said. Every document he'd signed. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I asked for my phone, and I called the one name my grandmother had given me, Donald Kessler. He answered on the second ring, and when I told him who I was, he said something that made my heart stop. "I've been trying to reach you for months." It turned out my grandmother had quietly written a will before she died. Her house, her savings, all of it, left to me. Not my parents, not my sister, just me. But while I was lying in a coma, my father had forged a power of attorney. He transferred the house into his name, then he took out a $280,000 mortgage against it and spent the money paying off gambling debts. He thought I'd never wake up to question it. He thought the debt would disappear along with me. He forgot one important thing. Nurses document everything, and lawyers read everything. 5 days after I woke up, I was discharged from the hospital. My father offered to take me home. I smiled and said Deborah would pick me up instead. He didn't understand why. Not yet. That Sunday, my father stood in front of 120 people at his church. He told them his daughter had survived a terrible accident. He said he prayed by my bedside every night. He called it a miracle. Then he invited me to say a few words. And I did. I walked to the microphone slowly. My ribs still hurt. The room was quiet. And I said something nobody in that church will ever forget. My father didn't pray by my bedside. He signed a paper to let me die. The room went silent. Then I told them everything. The DNR, the forged signature, the stolen house. And right on cue, Donald Kessler walked into the room carrying the legal documents. You could hear forks dropping on plates, people gasping. My father tried to call me confused, said I was on medication, but the papers were real, the evidence was real, and the truth was finally louder than his lies. Within a week, everything in his life collapsed. The bank froze the mortgage, the church removed him as deacon, his plumbing clients canceled their contracts, the police opened a fraud investigation. He called me one night and said something I'll never forget. "You destroyed me." And I said the only thing that needed saying. "No, Dad, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you." A month later, the court returned my grandmother's house to me. Gerald Thomas pled guilty to fraud and forgery, probation, restitution, a lifetime of debt. I drove to that little brick house on Elm Street one autumn afternoon. I unlocked the door. Lavender filled the air. My grandmother's scent. I sat on the porch swing where we used to talk. For the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never felt before. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because the truth was finally out. I used to think being a good daughter meant enduring anything. Silence, guilt, pain. Now I know better. Love doesn't demand your life as payment, and family doesn't mean you have to let someone destroy you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up, tell the truth, and walk away. My name is Wendy Thomas. I survived a car crash. I survived a coma. And I survived the moment I realized the man who raised me would rather lose a daughter than pay a bill. But I also learned something else. Sometimes the people who save you aren't family by blood. Sometimes they're a nurse who refuses to look away, a best friend who drives through the rain at midnight, and a grandmother who loved you enough to plan for the day you'd need protection. And if you're listening to this right now, and someone in your life keeps making you feel like a burden, remember this.
You are not a bill someone has to pay. You are not a debt someone gets to collect. And you absolutely do not owe anyone your life.